lies in front of you is a 2011 Ford Fusion Hybrid with 103,000 miles. Now the Ford Fusion was originally introduced in 2006 and was the Ford counterpart of the Mercury Milan and the Lincoln MKZ. Now the Fusion had two generations of the vehicle. This one belonged to the first generation, which was out from 2006 to 2012, and the second generation was out from 2012 to 2020, as the Fusion was discontinued this year in July. Now in the Ford hierarchy of sedans, the Fusion is the second largest and second most expensive, only behind the full-size Ford sedan, which is the Ford Taurus. Now this Fusion specific is the Fusion Hybrid, and is equipped with a 2.5-liter four-cylinder, which produces 191 horsepower, and is equipped with a 275-volt battery, which enhances the gas mileage tremendously of this pretty large-sized sedan. Now, sales of the Fusion were pretty good, peaking at 306,000 in 2014, and of a low of 181,000, I believe, in 2006. In this video, I'll be taking around the Fusion Hybrid, showing off its features and characteristics, taking it for a drive, and seeing where it falls on the Limitless evaluation scale. Stay tuned. So one cool feature that I love in literally any Ford product or Mercury or Lincoln is the keypad. Say you have a lot of groceries in your hand, you have some beach towels maybe, you have some sports bags, whatever may be in your hand, and say you don't want to try and reach into your pockets and try and fumble for your keys, you can simply just type in your keypad, open the door and unlock it, and have a much more easier access to the door opposed to reaching into your pockets and trying to grab for your keys. One feature that I love in any Ford, Lincoln, Mercury product, I wish more car brands would do this. Maybe Ford has it patented or copyrighted, but still, awesome feature on the exterior of the Fusion or any Ford. And one other feature that is exclusive to the first gen Ford Fusion Hybrid is the rims. These are only on the Fusion Hybrid. You will not find these rims on any other Fusion unless they are aftermarket, obviously. But a cool little exclusive feature to the Fusion Hybrid is the rims. Pretty nice design too. Another exterior feature on the Fusion, I just want to point out, you have your 3-tier chrome grille, a big Ford logo right in the middle of it. And one thing that's pretty cool, I like the headlight design of the Fusion Hybrid. You kind of have this square, kind of almost rhombus shaped headlight in the front. Got these big circular headlights right here, and it's a pretty cool sweeping look to the front grille of the Fusion. So assessing the trunk space of the 2011 Ford Fusion Hybrid, as you can see, it's a decent sized trunk because this is a mid-size sedan. It's pretty large. However, you do lose a decent amount of trunk space with the 295 volt nickel metal hydride battery in the back of the Fusion, which gives this vehicle such great gas mileage. As you can see, the battery is very large. It takes up a good amount of the trunk space. It's located directly behind the back seats in the trunk. So while you do lose a little bit of trunk space in the back of the Fusion, you are getting a very good amount of gas mileage enhanced from the regular, just normal 4-cylinder engines of the Fusion or the V6 Fusions. But just a good amount of trunk space in the Fusion. So moving beneath the hood of the 2011 Ford Fusion Hybrid, as you can see, you have Ford's 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine, which produces 195 horsepower. I find it kind of humorous how Ford emphasizes the hybrid aspect of the Fusion with this ginormous engine cover with the big hybrid letters embossed on the hood of the top of the engine. If you want to take a look at the engine though, I'll just give you a little panoramic sweep just if you want to take a look. And one humorous little touch I want to remark about the Fusion Hybrid is just the sheer amount of hybrid badges that you have on this vehicle. You have one on the trunk of the vehicle, one on the passenger side door, one on the driver's side door, one on the interior screen and the gauge cluster when you open the door, and you have one on the engine cover as well, giving you a grand total of 5 hybrid badges on the exterior of this vehicle. So one interesting feature that I want to point out in the Fusion Hybrid is how quiet the engine startup is. I'm going to now start the engine and just take a listen to how quiet this is when you start it up. That's it. The engine is on. It is pretty much silent, and you won't actually hear the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine until you put it in drive. For now, just idling quietly, and it's honestly pretty much as silent as an electric vehicle, which is pretty cool, honestly, for a hybrid vehicle from only 10 years ago. So moving to the gauge cluster of the 2011 Fusion Hybrid, for a 9-year-old vehicle, you have honestly a pretty loaded gauge cluster right here. It's pretty busy. There's a lot of stuff to look at, a lot of screens. If you move, starting from the left, you have your temperature gauge and your drive mode, obviously. You have your battery level right here next to the speedometer. This is not a plug-in hybrid. It is just a normal gas-powered hybrid. But the battery level will fluctuate as you're driving depending on how much of it you're using. If you're coasting, obviously, you'll have a higher battery level. If you're just flooring it on the highway, it might go down a little bit. This is any non-plug-in hybrid vehicle. Centered in the middle of the screen, obviously, you have your massive speedometer. To the right, you have your fuel level, your average MPG. Obviously, we're in 0 because we are parked. Your range and your average MPG. But a very loaded and pretty digitalized gauge cluster for a 9-year-old vehicle. Pretty cool to see in the Fusion Hybrid. So continuing in the interior of the Fusion Hybrid, the one thing I want to point out is you have this massive steering wheel. The wheel of the Fusion Hybrid is extremely large. I'm honestly curious if this borrows a wheel or shares the same wheel as the Ford F-150 of this generation, because this wheel is honestly ginormous. As you can see, you have the Ford badge centered in the middle of the wheel, and on the right side you have all your radio and your voice control settings, your volume, your playlist changing, your voice control, and your call button in case you want to answer the phone. To the left side of the steering wheel, you have all your various buttons that will change the configuration of the gauge cluster in the vehicle. But overall, it's a pretty simple setup. Ford provides you with a very convenient features right here on the side of the wheel, so you can just hit it while you're driving instead of reaching around your Ford Fusion to try and change something. Pretty convenient. So starting with the center stack of the 2011 Fusion Hybrid, the first thing I want to point out is you have a very convenient storage outlet right here. All you do is you press down this little button, and then the center storage outlet above the screens and AC whirs open. You have a little bit of room if you want to put coins or other little amenities. You can store them right here. And as you can see, you have your speaker, which is where the music comes out of. Moving below the center storage, you have your AC vents, a very large screen, which I will get to momentarily. You have all the buttons to configure your screen. You have all your radio presets, your radio features. You have all your AC features and climate vents or climate options right here. Below this, you have a little button that can change the interior lighting and your traction control button right here. Below this, you have a little storage pouch and a 12-volt outlet right here. You have your gear lever, 2 little cup holders, and a leather-wrapped center console, which is pretty deep, honestly. Pretty good storage in here. The one thing I want to point out, going back to this little button right here, as you can see, it has a night or a moon and a sun. If you click it, it will change the interior ambient lighting in the cup holders. As you can see, it had purple. It is now orange. You have red. You have kind of a blue, like an ocean blue. I believe that is yellow or gold. A darker blue, kind of matching the Ford logo. Pink. It's pretty cool though. It's a little hard to see because it's only 1 o'clock in the afternoon right now, but still a pretty cool feature, especially as a stock feature. A lot of people will put on interior lights as kind of an aftermarket feature, but it's pretty cool that Ford included this in their interior of the Fusion. One other humorous feature that I find with the interior of the Fusion, as you can see with this large screen, which I will get to in a second, I like how Ford wants to emphasize that it is Sync, powered by Microsoft. They want to emphasize how this screen is powered by one of the world's most famous computer software companies, and they stress that with a little Microsoft badge right next to the gear lever in the interior of the Fusion. So going to the screen on the interior of the Fusion Hybrid, as you can see here, this is your home screen. You have a little display of your navigation, your a map of where you are, and then your stereo and your radio settings, or your climate settings, are the default on the home screen. As you can see here, you have your map. It gives you a full display of the map in the interior of the Fusion. If you want to kind of see where you're located at, it's pretty convenient. Your destination, you can put in a destination, pretty much has GPS. You have your emergency, hospital, police in case you need to get somewhere in a pinch. Your navigation settings are pretty similar. You have a lot of different features you can configure with. You can have your breadcrumbs feature in case you want to track and retrace your steps almost. If you want to search for a specific street name, what the speed limit is, your estimated time, your full map size. There's a ton of different ways you can change and configure the screen to your exact preferences. If you want to have a certain amount of areas to avoid like a certain geographic location, you can do this. If you have a route preference, if you want to try and avoid freeways, if you want to go more on the back roads, you can do so. If you want to avoid your toll roads, ferries, anything that might be of an inconvenience to you, you can configure this in the Fusion to try and get the best location or directions possible, which is really cool, especially for this is really good tech for 2011. You can find some BMWs and Audis or Benzes or just high-end cars that have just as good, or if not, the Fusion might have even better screen configurations and tech than a luxury counterpart, which is pretty cool that you want to give Ford props for. Nonetheless, continuing with the screen, it is a touch screen, as you can see. Hit the home button right here. And then you have your climate features right here if you want to change the climate. You have physical buttons, as I pointed out before. If you want to raise the climate, you can see the number changing. But if you want to change it by touching it, simply has it. Hear a little beep, it'll respond to you pretty quickly. It's not instantaneous, but for 2011, this is really good, up to speed, touchscreen. You have your different airflow locations. You have your fan speeds right here. If your max AC button, it is a dual climate zone, which is pretty cool. So you and your passenger can have synced AC or heat, and still. But honestly, I wanted to say, like, this is very good tech for a 2011 vehicle. I believe the Fusion hybrid was about $35,000 in 2011, 2012, give or take, depending on how many extra features you wanted. But for a $35,000 car 9 years ago, this is very good tech and just a very well-equipped vehicle for the time. And one last feature that I want to point out in the interior of the screen, as you can see, it's pretty cool. Your HEV, it shows all your various engine settings. What you see has a layout of your engine, the electric motor, and the battery, which is located in the trunk. If you want, you can have a calendar to set, see where, like, what dates it is. It's right up to date. Today is November 25th, 2020. Pretty cool that it's still up to date after 9 years. Ford's got that good accuracy. And system info is pretty cool, actually. In case you want to call some stuff, you can call the Relations Center in the United States, Canada. You have Lincoln, Mexico, Ford, Mexico, your map versions, all this other cool kind of tech stuff that I don't know about. All the intellects who do the tech and coding stuff are pretty cool. Check all this stuff out. The one thing I honestly wonder, this is a 2011 Ford Fusion. The brand, Ford's counterpart brand of Mercury, went out of business in 2010. So I honestly wonder if you had a 2009 or before, pre-2010's Fusion, I honestly wonder if they would have the Mercury number in here as well, instead of just Ford and Lincoln. So moving to the rear seats of the 2011 Ford Fusion Hybrid, as you can see, I'm about 5'10", 5'11", give or take. I'm fully stretched out. I have a abundance of legroom. It is very roomy back here. The seats honestly push pretty far back too. So say you have a full crew to take in the Fusion, you need all 5 seats. Unless your passenger is 7 feet tall, you'll have a plenty amount of legroom, be very comfortable, which is very good. Can't ask for much more in a sedan. Aside from that, the seat quality is very nice. You have this very elegant looking black leather interior in the 2011 Fusion Hybrid. It is very smooth, very comfortable, very high quality. If you're going on a road trip, this will suit you very nicely. Very comfortable seats. Have a pretty cool pattern right here. Kind of have this weird stitch pattern with a giant bubble right here and a larger pad on the bottom. Pretty cool, interesting design, nothing too out of the ordinary. And the one other thing I want to point out in the back seat is you have this foldable or cup holder and armrest. You have 2 diagonal cup holders in case you want to have beverages for the rear passengers. A little bit of an armrest too in case while you're being chauffeured in the Fusion you want to rest your arm. Pretty convenient. Nothing too out of the ordinary in the back seat of the Fusion, but it's simple, it's nice, and it's just a very simply built back seat of a vehicle. So moving to the back seat from my perspective in the Fusion Hybrid, as you can see, as I said before, I have a ton of legroom. fully outstretched, sitting straight up, a lot of leg room. As you can see here, you have a storage pouch on the driver's side and the passenger side rear seat. And the only other thing that's noteworthy in the back of the Fusion Hybrid, as you can see, you have a entire plug-in outlet. So in case you want to bring a blender and make smoothies in the rear seat of your Fusion, Ford lets you do so. Or obviously charge your phone, Ford lets you do so. Pretty cool. Instead of having a 12-volt outlet or a USB, you have an entire household outlet in the back of the Fusion. So getting behind the wheel of the 2011 Ford Fusion Hybrid, the one thing I want to point out is it's got pretty good pep, honestly. The 2.5 liter 4-cylinder has pretty adequate pep. You know, the engine sounds kind of it's weird because like it's a mix between the battery powered and the actual the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine. So as I'm driving, you can see all the various gauges go up and down in the instrument or the gauge cluster, and it's kind of cool to just see all this stuff reacting to how much you're hitting it or you're touching, you know. In terms of just like if you're just going for like straight acceleration, it's got pretty good pep. Like I said, it's not sluggish by any means. It's got adequate power for the size of the vehicle. And keep in mind, the Fusion is a decent sized sedan. It's not a little tiny like compact sedan like a Focus, and it's not as big as a Taurus, don't get me wrong, but it's still a pretty healthy mid-sized sedan, and it's got good pep for a smaller engine opposed to, you know, what the Fusion offered originally in their non-hybrid models. One thing I want to point out too is the brakes are very responsive to your touch. Like, I can literally like tap the brakes and it'll almost like stop the entire vehicle. I'm not sure why they're so responsive, but they react like instantaneously. Like the brakes will, if you need to come to a sudden stop, the brakes will definitely do their job. They're very adaptive and responsive to your touch. One thing too that I want to point out, the leather seats are extremely comfortable. Like there's very good cushion on every single side of the seat. There's very good side bolstering, leg bolstering. And as I'm just coasting down a straightaway right now, I am just wrapped in comfort. Very comfortable seats. And the best comparison I can honestly make to the seats of this vehicle is a Lexus IS250. And when you're competing with a pretty healthily expensive Lexus sedan, that's pretty good on a Ford part, where considering that this is just a, not entry level, but not a supreme, it's not the Lincoln MKZ, it's a Ford. So pretty good comfort on just a basic Ford sedan. You know, but just going down coasting on a straightaway right here, the turning radius, I made a turn not that long ago. It's not a very large sedan. It's pretty easy to maneuver, which is good in case you need to go to a city or you live in a tighter area. But overall, the one thing that's great about this vehicle too is the fuel economy is almost exceptional. You can expect to get low 30 miles per gallon in this vehicle. And considering the size of it, as I said before, the Fusion's not, you know, a giant SUV or sedan, pardon me. It's not the Taurus. It's still no compact. It's a pretty healthy sized sedan. So to get 30 miles per gallon out of a sedan from 10 years ago almost, that's pretty healthy numbers on a, you know, for a Ford sedan, a mid-size segment. You know, but overall, you know, everything in this vehicle too also, it's pretty much fully loaded, the hybrid model of the Fusion. So you're getting all these good amenities. You have this very digitalized gauge cluster. You have a very configurable screen, a touch screen with a lot of options inside. Fully fledged leather seats, nice interior build quality, and a pretty reliable engine for the most part that most people have said they can get 200,000 miles out of. You really can't go wrong with this vehicle, honestly. And plus, from a vehicle that started at $35,000 while new, and you can get this for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, if even less than that now, that's a pretty good bargain, especially if you're looking for kind of a first car to buy. This would be a great option for you. And this vehicle, honestly, like, it's given me like more. I mean, I was excited to review this, but I'm honestly impressed with how much stuff is packed into this vehicle. So honestly, like, commend Ford for doing a hell of a job with this vehicle. So props to them, honestly. It is now time for the interview section, which I answer 5 generic questions when asked when going to purchase a vehicle. Question number 1 of the interview section is, what is my favorite part about the 2011 Ford Fusion Hybrid? And that would be the overall screen. As I mentioned numerous times throughout this video, the fact that you can change this and work with the screen in so many different ways for a 2011 sedan is really impressive. So I get a kick out of it for how versatile it is. So that is my favorite feature about the 2011 Ford Fusion Hybrid. Question number 2 of the interview section is, what is my least favorite or feature that I don't like about the Ford Fusion? 2 particular things, if I'm being nitpicky. One thing is, if you're hitting the engine, it sounds a little weird. It's got like a kind of a weird engine sound. That's very like a very minor inconvenience or detail to pick on. If I had to pick something a little more specific, the brakes are like very responsive. Sometimes if you're like just want to like kind of tap the brakes, they're kind of a little bit too much. So if I'm being nitpicky, that might be like a very minor detail I might not like about the Fusion. There's nothing in particular like I really dislike about this car, but if I had to be particular, those would be two little like tiny tidbits I could point out. Question number 3 of the interview section is going to be a little bit more in-depth than usual, but it's a really cool feature. The coolest thing about the Ford Fusion Hybrid is the serious travel link options, where you can see fuel prices, movie listings, and sports info. If you go into the fuel prices, you can see all of the local gas stations. You can sort them by price too, so in case you want to get the lowest prices. I believe this is set for regular fuel. But as you can see here in the local proximity, BP and these 2 gas stations below it and Lukoil have the cheapest gas prices of them all. As you can see, it gets more expensive. So if you want the cheapest gas prices, the Fusion will get you to the cheapest gas station in the local area. If you go back, you can go to your movie listings for the closest cinemas. Unfortunately, if you click on these, all these cinemas are basically closed for COVID, so you won't really get that much in-depth info, but you can get your local listings, the address and the phone number if you want them. But the coolest thing among these, in my opinion, is the sports info stuff. So say Thanksgiving's coming up, say you want to watch some football, go to NFL, you can see recent scores. This was November 23rd, just 2 days ago, of the Los Angeles Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Updated scores. I find it super impressive that this 2011 vehicle has up-to-date scores instantly. And 2020, which is really cool, shows you how good Ford's technology was in this vehicle. And if you want to see the upcoming games for Thanksgiving and the upcoming week, you can see here Houston Texans and the Lions, the Washington football team and the Cowboys, and the Ravens and Steelers game, which just got postponed because of COVID, but it hasn't updated that instantaneously, but still, it still displays upcoming games in the weeks, which is pretty cool considering this vehicle is 9 years old and is still up to date and accurate with all the scores and stuff. Really cool features in the Ford Fusion that you won't find in many vehicles from 2011. Question number 4 of the interview section is the 2011 Ford Fusion worth its value? And I would say a definite yes. While these were new, I believe, like with depending on how many like specific options and packages you wanted to get, like beyond just the Fusion package in 2011, I believe it was ballpark around $35,000 while new. But in 2020, most Fusion hybrids with like about give or take 100,000 miles, this one has, you get it for $5, $6, $7, $8 depending on like how mint and the mileage, obviously. But for that price point, getting 30 miles per gallon plus in a decent sized sedan with all these features, I would say it's a really good deal, honestly. Especially if you're looking for a first car, it's a great option for you. So I would say the Fusion is definitely worth the value. Question number 5, the interview section is, would I ever want or consider the Ford Fusion Hybrid? And I would say yes. If I was looking for just a simple sedan to either just commute with or just to, take the places instead of having like a, something burlier and larger, I think the Fusion is honestly a great option for you. For a 2011 vehicle with all this tech, and for a Ford, not a Lincoln, not a Benz, not a Beamer, not a Jaguar, a Ford, you got some pretty insane tech in here. Really good features, good build material. So yes, I would consider the Fusion Hybrid. Now that we've evaluated the Ford Fusion Hybrid's characteristics and features, time to see where it falls on the Limitless evaluation scale. Before I begin, I want to thank my friend Chris for lending me his Fusion for the production of this video. Now on with the scoring. Starting with the exterior, the Fusion has a simplistic, appealing design and earns a 5 out of 10. Interior, the Fusion is good, with a well-built modern style and a nicely integrated screen, and earns a 6 out of 10. Road trip on the Fusion Hybrid is strong, right up there with the luxury counterparts that I reviewed, such as the BMW 5 Series and above the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, and earns a 7 out of 10. MPG, the Fusion Hybrid, is also strong, with a combined estimated MPG of 38.5 miles per gallon, good enough for a 9 out of 10 on the MPG scale. Storage on the Fusion Hybrid is surprisingly weak, as this vehicle sacrifices some trunk space for better fuel economy with a large battery, earning a 4 out of 10 for storage. Character on the Fusion is low, as these are a popular, generic sedan in North America. While the hybrid trim is slightly more appealing than the normal Fusion, it still earns a 2 out of 10 for character. For wishlist, the Fusion Hybrid is surprisingly good, not leaving much to be desired besides some slightly updated tech features, earning an 8 out of 10 for wishlist. Handling on the Fusion is fine. It's not exhilarating, but it's easy to maneuver and doesn't have much body roll, and earns a 5 out of 10. Excitement for the Fusion is poor, as these are not thrilling by any extent, earning a 1 out of 10 for excitement. Stupidity in the Fusion Hybrid is good,
as there aren't many abnormal flaws with this vehicle, earning an 8 out of 10 for stupidity. Pricing of the Fusion Hybrid is strong, as you can find one of these around 10 grand or less. For those looking for a borderline luxury sedan with strong build materials and solid tech, that's a bargain, and earns an 8 out of 10 for price. Engine responsiveness on the Fusion Hybrid is just alright. Like the two other Fords that I've driven, it's a bit revvy, with slightly longer than average gear changes, earning just a 4 out of 10 for engine responsiveness. And overall amenities in the Fusion Hybrid is impressive, as this vehicle is the closest you're going to get to a Lincoln MKZ without the actual Lincoln badge. As mentioned before, the sedan was fully loaded for the time, and with the exception of some modern safety and self-driving abilities, the Fusion Hybrid still delivers some serious features, earning an impressive 8 out of 10 for overall amenities. Altogether, you had a grand total of 75 out of 130, divided that by 13 categories is 5.77. Overall, the Fusion Hybrid ties the 2008 BMW 335i and 2011 Infiniti G25X for 12th place of the 34 vehicles I reviewed thus far, and falls only 1 point short of the 2013 Mercedes-Benz C300 and 2009 Audi A4. While the Fusion Hybrid might not be as flashy on the outside as its luxury competitors, it's just as loaded if not better on the inside, and rightfully deserves its place beside these vehicles. As I said before, this is as close as you're going to get to the MKZ without the Lincoln badge, and I honestly was surprised at how much the Fusion Hybrid had to offer. Thanks for watching.